Hey everybody, it's Jim Hagemeyer with Leslie Wells Realty at Tom and Jim's Awesome Real Estate Adventure, and across the table from me is my friend.
Realtor Tom, and you're going to want to hit the like button on this one today because we have a very special guest today.
It's Pat from the Railroad Museum, the Florida Railroad Museum, right here in Parrish. And I'm excited about this, just to watch this organization grow. Pat, thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
What a pleasure. Tell us a brief history about the Florida Railroad Museum. How did this all come about? And tell us about the growth.
There were about 5 or 6 guys who decided back in 1982 to try to save some old Florida railroad equipment, railroad cars, Pullmans, locomotives, and they borrowed some track from the power company that they could run back and forth on. And somewhere back around the late 90s, they bought
just as a hobby.
These guys put $10,000 of their own money into it just to get going, and created a corporation, the Florida Railroad Museum, and acquired equipment and would fix it and run it on their little pieces of track up there.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the 90s, they were able to buy some land in a place called Willow in South Wimauma.
I live here. Where's Willow?
South Wimauma, in the middle of nowhere. But the railroad tracks that came down out of like Plant City down towards Fort Myers, that run through across 301 in Parrish.
Uh-huh.
We bought that track. We have 6 miles of track now.
Okay.
And we have property at each end, about 12 acres at each end of the property. So in Parrish is our station, where the train picks up the passengers. We take them for a 6-mile ride up the north end to the place called Willow. We have 12 acres of land up there. We do events, shows, other things. We have a museum building, and people get off the train and see the museum building and then take the ride home.
So how did you personally get involved in the Railroad Museum? I mean, as a kid, did you have the toy trains and all that?
I had Lionel trains, and I still have one of them left from when I was a kid, a little locomotive on the shelf somewhere. And I always liked trains. I like cars, trains, boats, and planes. It's
right. I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
So I just happened to be driving up 301 one day, and I saw the Florida Railroad Museum sign and hit the brake, go find out what's going on. And I liked what I saw. And we subsequently bought a house in some city just 3 miles from Willow.
Right.
And I've been spending a lot of my time, my retired time at Willow.
Working harder than ever.
Working on trains.
So do you take the train home?
It doesn't go to my house yet.
Yeah. So I was. We were talking earlier about, many years ago, I took my parents there on a Sunday afternoon, and rode the track. It must have been in the 90s, maybe the late 90s, and there was an open cattle car.
Yeah.
Well, we've grown a little bit since then. Tell us about some of the inventory and some of the cars and equipment that you had.
Well, we try to acquire old railroad cars that are Florida railroad cars, and sometimes we get something that's not a Florida railroad car, but we can trade it to somebody else in another museum somewhere in the country for a Florida railroad car. So we have a railroad car that's called the Bradenton. That was running on these tracks many years ago. That's right on our property now. And there's one called the Okeechobee that's out in the Midwest somewhere. We can't get it yet, but we'd love to. But we have locomotives. We have an Alco that we got a few years ago right down here in Palmetto that was sitting in the weeds, that was built in 1946, the year I was born. And our guys got it going, and we run that 1946 locomotive on our train periodically.
Wow.
We have another EMD GP7 from 1951 that we run every weekend. And so we have a lot of old diesel locomotives that we run on the weekends.
So, I mean, as a novice, I was looking at some of the inventory of the locomotives, and the numbers don't mean anything to me.
No, they won't.
But gosh, there must have been at least 6, maybe even more locomotives. They can't be cheap.
No, they're not. They're usually a really run-down old locomotive is $100,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A newer one is $250,000 up, which we can't possibly afford.
So how about some of the passenger cars? I mean, I saw something about air conditioning, luxury cars.
There was a derailment out in Ohio of a guy that had like a dinner train, and he was on private track that he was renting. He had a derailment, and apparently they couldn't afford to take care of the problem right away. And somebody came in with some cranes to clear the track and picked up his railroad cars and dumped them on the side of the road, just left them there to fix the track so they could get other trains through. And they sat there for years. And one of our guys found them, made the guy an offer, and we bought the 3 luxury railroad cars from the guy, but we had to truck them back here. And in Sarasota, there's a man named Johnson who's a house mover.
Know him?
And we use him to bring our railroad cars into the property from all over the place.
I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really good. We've got locomotives from brought down to us, so he's just really good. So that's how we get that stuff, and our guys fix them up. We have a guy that worked at Ringling on the circus trains. He's familiar with all that stuff, and he fixes the cars. And our mechanics have learned how to do locomotive work, railroad car. You know, railroad car is just like your house. You have plumbing, you have electrical work, you have air conditioning, sewers. You know, all the stuff you got in your house, except it's moving all the time.
So some of these cars have a little history to them. I think Tom and I were talking the other day about it. I think one of those belonged to or was Eleanor Roosevelt's car.
The Bradenton that we have on display right at the parish station, supposedly Eleanor Roosevelt rode it. That's I don't think it's a lie, but that's the lore that we tell people.
Oh, I'll buy it.
And it's got sleepers, and you know you can walk in there. You go up to the property, you can kind of walk in there and look at the fold down beds, fold down cots, and the little kitchenettes and all that thing. So it's really an interesting car in itself.
And Tom was telling me about some trains that were in the movies. What movie was that?
Apparently, I didn't realize that until now, but Thomas the Tank is a Florida engine. Is that what?
Thomas the Tank is actually started in England back in the 40s as a cartoon character. And it was prevalent in England. And then Mattel, the toy company, bought the franchise for the States. They had the Strasburg Railroad people build 5 replicas of that little blue locomotive. 2 of them are real steam engines. The other 3 have no driving engine in them.
Right.
So we rent from them under contract one of those replicas, and we put it on the south end of our train. It has animated eyes and it talks. It's got little voice things in it. And we have one of our guys dressed as an engineer. He rides anything, but our diesel's at the other end of the
I got
train,
you. Okay.
moving the train back. And little kids don't know that.
I wouldn't know it either.
Yeah. So we have Thomas come every February for 2 weekends, and we do a ride every hour for about 30 minutes, which is about the attention span of a little kid.
Sure. Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
So we can, did I read where we can actually rent the train?
Yes. At the Florida Railroad Museum, you can rent a train, a charter for your business. We've had Chamber of Commerce type people, other companies rent it for an offsite, and you can take the train any night of the week, any afternoon, whatever you want, up to Willow. You can have your caterer up there. We have tents up, and you can have an indoor, under the tent dinner if you like, have a band.
And to operate the locomotive, it requires a Florida driver's license
Yes. Also,
because it's the same thing. I don't know.
I'll tell you about the driver's license. It's interesting. You can rent the locomotive at lunchtime, Saturday, Sunday, for just an hour. You can rent the whole train anytime you're not running a train. You can rent a caboose. We have a caboose on the train at all times. So if you want to have a birthday party on a caboose on a moving train, you can do that also. We have a lot of things you can do that are trainways.
Yeah.
You can also, we run our normal train Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 2. It's a 90-minute train ride. But you can upgrade your ticket to ride with the engineer. It's called a cab ride for not a lot of money. You know, if you go out west, it's hundreds of dollars to ride. Here, it's about another $20 to ride with the engineer. So you get to ride with me or one of the other engineers on a Saturday, Sunday, and all that thing. Now, the funny part is that to ride with the engineer, to get a cab ride, you need to have a driver's license. And people always ask me, why do I need to have a driver's? Well, I need people who are not sick, epileptic, have medical conditions, have 2 good legs to get up and down the ladder and good arms, and don't have a broken back. You know, it's essentially a screening filter to keep people who sign up for cab ride and they get this locomotive and they can't climb the ladder. And
Well, Tom has a driver's license, so we could
Really?
do the actual Thomas the Train. We could do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could drive it.
So so apparently there's a lot of hard work behind this, and it's not just on trains, but there's the tracks and the museum itself. So there's a lot to it, more than just what the eye sees. I guess.
Let me talk about track, because you brought that up, and that's one of the key issues for us. Is you're familiar with railroad ties? They're full of creosote, right? You know that a telephone pole of creosote will last a
Same
long
thing.
time. The railroad ties don't seem to last quite as long with the creosote. About 7 years, the bottoms start to rot anyway because they're sitting in the Florida water, which has tannic acid and other materials, and it rots the railroad ties. We have to change 1,200 to 1,500 ties a year, which is a continuous job.
Who knew?
We have 22,000 ties on that railroad. We have to change 1,200 to 1,500 a year. We have 2 full-time people doing track work Monday through Friday.
That's all they do.
Full-time. That's all they do. Changing out ties, and scuffing up the gravel to level the track.
Extremely labor intensive. Let me ask you this: who funds all this? Where's the money come from?
No, this is really good questions.
Yeah.
The money
Well,
comes.
that's
The money
what I think
comes.
about at night.
Inquiring
Yeah.
minds
Yeah.
want
The
to-
money comes from the people that come to the train. They buy tickets to ride the train. They buy the merchandise in the shop, the T-shirts and all that other nonsense. And if you buy a Coke on the train, it's $2 because we buy them from Sam's Club for next to nothing, but we mark them up. We need the money. And we have had, thanks to some help from some people in parish, we have gotten a huge grant from Manatee County Tourist Development Council to build our buildings. So if you come to the parish facility now, you'll see some almost completed buildings, a new station building and a big train shed, funded by Manatee County, which we are so grateful for. They just did a fabulous job for us. And we're just looking to finish that off now. But basically, the operating money is from tickets from people buying services, renting a train, renting a locomotive, all that sort of thing.
So how about employees? Not just volunteers, but employees. How many employees do we have?
We have about 6 employees. We started with 1 when I came here, and I
Yeah.
used to help that guy do everything, fixing
Yeah.
locomotives and doing track. I actually did tire replacement and all that stuff, and I'm too old for that now. We're up to 6 employees. We have like 3 mechanics and 2 guys. 2 of them are on the track full time, and we have 2 ladies in the ticket office. And the ticket office is open Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay. So basically, I typically ask, how can the community support your cause? And in this case, come on out to the
Ride the train. Ride the train.
And again, that's Wednesday through.
The train rides are Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
But the ticket office is open Wednesday through Sunday.
So it's a weekend.
So if you have nothing to do on a Wednesday, you go into the ticket office, buy 17 T-shirts, for example. That will help.
We're going to do it. So also, can we visit you from the website?
Yes, frrm.org.
Okay, that'll be on the screen, and so we can get some information there.
We also have a Facebook presence.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
Easy to find. And one final question: can we have our Leslie Wells Christmas party on the train, Tom will drive?
You can.
Pat, thanks for coming in
You
this
bet.
morning.
Thanks
man.
for
What
having
a
me.
pleasure. Huh? Okay, everybody, there you go. Jim Hagemeyer at Tom and Jim's awesome real estate adventure at Leslie Wells Realty. And
Realtor Tom, and just a reminder, we're here for all your real estate needs.
thanks for watching. Bye-bye.